I thought I'd start with a piece by one of our oldest artists who is now 97. This is by Eunice Parsons, and it's a collage, and it's made up of found material. Eunice has worked in collage since the 1960s. I love the color in this piece. I love the quality, the kind of aged quality of some of the papers, and she does that by actually taking papers and leaving them outside in a trough sometimes over the winter. When you see kind of beautiful letter forms, they come from, oftentimes from posters. I'm going to go talk about Jim Riswold next, who did those 2 black and white photographs that are behind the desk. His work tends to be very political and about things that are happening in real time, in our time, and also he was fascinated with World War II. The terrain is, of course, sort of a cassoulet, beans and sausages, and this one, I think it might be baked beans. And you'll notice the troopers that are going through are actually leaden or metal soldiers that he arranges in the landscape. But I love the quality of the kind of absurdity of what he's doing, that combination of using the food as though it were this difficult terrain to motor through, to get through, making us aware of concerns like what we do with war. In here is a piece by Michael DeForest, and it's the chair that's sitting up in the front corner. Michael is a woodworker. A lot of his work has little personal touches. There's a blue hand with a little yellow baby's hand. Also a beautiful kind of bridge that looks like a Tibetan or Chinese kind of rope bridge. The color comes from a technique where they use milk paint, and so it's actually a very old style of paint that's made mixing pigments and milk together. And he tends to layer his color and then sand back with it, so you get this just really incredible surface. And I love that combination of the old and the new, and then the sort of timelessness. So let's move on a little bit, and we'll go into the gallery over here. So I'm going to talk about this painting by R.V. Smith. R.V.'s an African-American painter who grew up in East Texas. He has had some very interesting moments. And his work, he uses iconography of old-time African-American Bojangles, Aunt Jemima imagery. I think there's kind of a liveliness and a charged quality. His work is socially critical at the same time. It's always kind of a celebration. I love that he is not afraid to paint large, bright, and kind of force you to think about what he's thinking about. So another artist I'm going to talk about is just behind you here, or sort of in front of me, James Lavador. And he grew up on the Umatilla Reservation, and he's Native American, and has, I think, an incredibly sort of soulful relationship to the land. Jim really nails it. He completely gets that sense in the same way that I think Mark Rothko does of some kind of spirit in nature. So M.J. Anderson is a sculptress that's been also working in Oregon for many years. She lives down on the coast in Nehalem. I love the simplicity of her work and the way she really relates to the stone and the colors in the stone, and is almost a minimal artist with how she considers the figure. This is sort of a classic image of hers, just a very beautiful, very pure, simple piece. So I'm going to talk about a couple of artists in here as well, and we do have several of Laura Ross Paul's paintings in the museum's collection. And if you haven't heard this Art Beat segment, you should listen to this one, because she had a kind of a major tragedy early in her life that really affected the way she thinks about the world and the way she thinks about painting. Lori's really what I think of as a painter's painter. She really moves the paint around on the canvas. She's a marvelous colorist. And she uses a technique now. You'll notice this is a very encaustic-like surface because it does have a wax surface to the paint. And she starts by painting her paintings, and then she literally melts them down with, I'm not sure what she uses, some kind of horrible toxic stuff, I think. But I'm not positive about that. And then she kind of lets that watercolory effect, she kind of pulls it back out by sharpening things back up and working with the encaustic on top of it. I think we're going to talk about this Tom Prochaska painting. Tom is a painter who paints plein air sometimes, so he paints both in the studio and he'll go out on location and do landscape and works like that. He has a charmingly individual color sense that I like very much, and I love the way his paintings look like he's kind of finding edges of things by making little strokes. If you're familiar with the Belgian painter James Ensor, I always find James Ensor in his work. This painting in particular, I like the sort of lost and found in it. It's just a very interesting, not abstract painting. So if you know Lucinda Parker's work, Lucinda lately has been doing a lot of very large public artwork. But anyway, I love it that she's also working, and this one's from 2012, in this kind of smaller format now, because she's really been looking at our landscape, and she loves the mountains here and the things that inspired some of our earliest Northwest painters, a sort of landscape painting style that's almost like C.S. Price, Charles Haney, who were really taking cubism and then turning it into a way of kind of doing something and playing with our landscape. So let's go to the People's Gallery. Adrienne Cruz combines African imagery, African American imagery and symbols, and her love of quilting and stitchery, of found objects. She makes quilts as well, and this is a quilted piece. Wonderful use of pattern and color and beading, and again, taking her African heritage and turning it into something that's contemporary art. I'm going to have you look at this little modernist necklace by Kristen Mitsushiga, who is, I think, one of our state's absolutely exquisitely outstanding metalsmiths. In this piece, there are found objects. There are pieces of wood. There's, silver. Sometimes she uses gemstones, a variety of things. She really likes modernist work, but also pushes her work in a lot of different directions. And I love it that she's a person who came to Oregon to study after studying a number of other places and really felt like she had found a place that challenged her enough to really teach her something important.